Well, good morning and welcome to our Monday Bible study as we continue with the life of David. We finished 1 Samuel last week. We begin 2 Samuel today. In our reminder, 1 and 2 Samuel are one work. It was not until later translations in the Greek, the Septuagint, and then into Latin that it began to be divided, and it was divided because of the death of Saul. Is kind of the end of 1 Samuel and then the rise of David's kingship in 2 Samuel. What we'll find is there's a story that begins 1 Samuel with David's awareness of Saul's death. And it's a different story than we find in the end of 1 Samuel about his death. And we'll have to ask some questions about why does this story differ a little bit, and then what are some of the motivations of the one bringing the story. One of the things we'll notice is that a lot of times when somebody has died within 1 and 2 Samuel, the news comes to David, and David in many ways reacts to it in such a way that not only shows that he is a good person, but he had no hand in it. He wants to, part of what we have to see here is that David is reminding people that he didn't have anything to do with these bad things happening. Because later on, people are going to question, did David have anything to do with this? And David, over and over again, 1 Samuel reminds us that David didn't have anything to do with this. We will find later that David does put his hand in the wrong places. But here we'll see some stories where he's still portrayed as the ideal king. So if you remember in the end of 1 Samuel, the Philistines have gone to battle with the Israelites. David was supposed to go, but he's able to go back to Ziklag. And from there, he hears that he gets there and finds out the Amalekites have come and raided his village and have taken his wives. He goes and rescues them. And as that is happening, Saul dies in battle. And we get to 1 Samuel and we see that this has happened, and at this point David is not aware that Saul is dead. So let's read. 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1 and following. After the death of Saul, when David had returned from defeating the Amalekites, David remained 2 days in Ziklag. On the third day, a man came from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dirt on his head. He came to David and fell to the ground and did obeisance. And David said to him, "Where have you come from?" And he said to him, "I have escaped from the camp of Israel." And David said to him, "How did things go? Tell me." He answered, "The army fled from battle, but also many of the army fell and died. And Saul and his son Jonathan also died." Then David asked the young man who was reporting to him, "How do you know that Saul and his son Jonathan died?" "I happened to be on Mount Gilboa, and there was Saul leaning on his spear while the chariots and the horsemen drew close to him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me and called to me, and I answered, 'Here, sir.' And he said to me, 'Who are you?' And I answered him, 'I am an Amalekite.' And he said to me, 'Come, stand over me and kill me. For convulsions have seized me, and yet my life still lingers.' So I stood over him and killed him, for I knew that he could not live after he had fallen. I took the crown that was on his head and the armlet that was on his arm, and I brought them here to my Lord." So this Amalekite is one of those people that is always an enemy of Israel. He happens to be on the battlefield. His report, "I'm on the battlefield right as Saul is dying." The question would be, why are you there to begin with? He's there and he sees the king is on his spear. He's still alive. Now, some of the irony here is, is this the same spear that he throws at David over and over again? Is it the same spear? He is on his death, but he's not dead, and he asks this stranger who just shows up to kill him. And David says, well, how do I know that you were there? Well, here's his crown, and here's his amulet that he wore around his wrist. Well, the question would be, why do you have those things? So the question is, was he really there when Saul died? Or was he an opportunist that has come by, found the crown and the arm piece, brought it to David, and wants reward for it? The text doesn't say. You know, if we want to get into, well, which story is it? Was it that he killed himself? Or was it that he's dying and he needs this guy to kill him? We don't have to worry too much about that. This man shows up to David hoping for something. I happened to be on Mount, there was Saul leaning while the chariots and the horsemen drew close to him. When he looked behind him, he saw and called. I answered, here, sir. Who are you? I answered, I am an Amalek. Come stand over me, kill me. Verse 11, then David took hold of his clothes and tore them, and all the men who were with him did the same. They mourned and wept and fasted until evening for Saul and his son Jonathan, and for the army of the Lord, for the house of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. So David hears this, and his first response is immediate grief. Not just the grief of the loss of Saul and Jonathan, but the loss of Israel's hopes and future, it appears to be. You know, how bad can it get? Well, it's gotten so bad that now the king's dead and the army has fled and the Philistines have come and occupied portions of the land. David said to the young man who had reported him, where do you come from? So David goes back and starts to inquire of this man, who are you? He says, I am a son of a resident alien, an Amalekite. So it's somebody who's lived in the area, but his people aren't from the area. He's, And David said to him, were you not afraid to lift your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? David had 3 opportunities to kill Saul. He didn't take them. He was afraid to kill what? The anointed one. Even when he was pushed by his own people to do it. So he looks at this resident alien, this Amalekite, which is an enemy of God's people in some sense, and says, were you not afraid? David called one of the young men and said, come here and strike him dead. Strike him down. So he struck him down and he died. And David said, your blood be on your head. For your own mouth has testified against you, saying, I have killed the Lord's anointed. Whether he did it or didn't do it is not, he said he did. David doesn't know the other version of the story. If this was just an opportunist, he came and said that he killed Saul, even though Saul asked. And we would say, well, he was asking for it. But for David, he carried blood guilt on him for killing the anointed one of God. The very thing David wouldn't do. Your blood be on your head, for your mouth has testified against you, saying, I have killed the Lord's anointed. As bad as this is, it is an opportunity for David. Saul is out of the way. Before we move into David taking more of a front row seat and trying to grow his kingship, he does something remarkable. He laments. And in here we have a lamentation over Saul and Jonathan And it's interesting the way that the writer of 2 Samuel informs us of things we don't know because we don't have anymore. He says, David intoned this lamentation over Saul and his son Jonathan. He ordered that the song of the bow be taught to the people of Judah. It is written in the book of Jashar. Now, we don't have that book. It's also mentioned in the book of Joshua, but it's not survived to us today. But we have one or a couple of those within the Hebrew Bible that tells us of a lamentation, a poem written in honor of Saul and Jonathan. It would have been a funeral dirge. It would have been a lamentation for those at a time of death, and would have been to honor the slain heroes of Israel. So as we listen to it, listen to how David speaks of Saul and Jonathan. Your glory, O Israel, lies slain upon your high places. How the mighty have fallen. Tell it not in Gath, proclaim it not in the streets of Ashkelon, or the daughters of the Philistines will rejoice. Don't proclaim this news to the enemies, for they will rejoice over it. But for us it is what? It is sadness. The daughters of the uncircumcised will exult. You mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew or rain upon you. The place where Jonathan and Saul died, let it be a place where no longer God's blessings inhabit, nor bountiful fields. For there the shield of the mighty was defiled, and the shield of Saul anointed with oil no more. For the blood of the slain and the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan did not turn back, nor the sword of Saul turn empty. If you remember, Jonathan's favorite weapon was the bow. Saul and Jonathan, beloved and lovely. In life and in death, they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. O daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you with crimson and luxury, who put ornaments of gold on your apparel. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of battle. Jonathan lies slain upon your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Greatly beloved were you to me. Your love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women. David is mourning, but he not only is mourning, but all of Israel is mourning the loss of their king and the loss of the victory that they thought would happen against the Philistines, and it becomes, in many ways, a moment of national mourning. And it happens in song, it happens in hymn. And for us, we can think of times in our history where there have been songs of national mourning. Can you think of one off the top of your head? Okay, one at a time.
Kennedy.
Okay. So when Kennedy died, there's this gloom that goes over I wasn't alive. But it didn't matter if you voted for him or not. There was this sense of national mourning. What were some others? 9/11. Just a sense of national mourning. When I think of music, do you think of any music that happens that has some national mourning over it? I always think of the song, I wasn't alive, but the plane that crashed with Buddy Holly and the song American Pie. It was a song of national mourning for a loss of rock and roll. Elvis Presley. You know, Elvis Presley does his Christmas special, and it happens right after Martin Luther King Jr. has died. And he sings a song at the end of it. Y'all remember what the name of it was? I can't think of the name. It's a beautiful song. And it talks about, just this it's a national mourning song of a loss of hope of national unity. There are other songs I think that you go back and to think of, but for us there are moments in our history where it's either song or just a feeling of national mourning. And here it. Go ahead.
Think about Diana when she died. That was not national, but it was more global. And I think about that Elton John when he did the song
"Candle in the Wind." Yeah. I mean, even for us to think about, even if we're not Catholic, just a few weeks ago, Pope Francis was in the hospital. And people around the world are praying. So it's easy for us to look at this and feel like, this is an alien world, we don't live in it. But if we were to live in our time to understand when something happens, it affects a larger community. And in many ways, the same lamentations that are heard after the Babylonians come and the people are in exile, those lamentations carry with them some of the same lamentations that are here, because it's a loss of a future. And what's next? And David's not king yet. And victory's not necessarily assured. But he gives permission for the people to mourn. And they mourn. How the mighty have fallen, and the weapons of war perished. Immediately after this, in chapter 2, David turns his attention from mourning to prayer and begins to inquire of the Lord, what should I do next? Now remember, he's in the Philistine territory. Now what we're going to see is when he moves back to Judah, we don't see that he necessarily gives up. I mean, there's not like a break right away from the Philistines. It comes later, but there's still some questions people might have. Well, where does your allegiance lie? Now remember, when he was sacking all of those people and sending stuff back to Judah, he was telling the Philistines it came from Judah, but it really came from others. So he's already kind of sweetened the pot for Judah when he comes back. There are people there ready for him to come because he's already their hero. So a lot of times we read this and sometimes we forget David's a good politician in many ways. I mean, he's not just acting, he's acting with some sort of vision in what he's doing. After David inquired of the Lord, shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said to him, go up, David, to which I shall go up. And he said, to Hebron. So David went up there along with his 2 wives, and Ahinoam of Jezreel, and Abigail the widow of Nabal of Carmel. Now we've already been introduced to them, and they are from this region that he's going of Hebron, and more than likely, because of his marriage to them, he's probably already acquired some of the lands and land holdings that they have. So it makes sense that he would go there too. David brought up the men who were with him, every one with his household, and they settled in the towns of Hebron. Now we know he's got 600 men, but they've got children and wives and servants, so it's a large influx of a population. Question is, did they welcome him all at once, or was it just kind of a takeover? But they seem to have welcomed him. The people of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. Now we'll notice later in 1 Kings the breakdown of the kingdom of Israel in the north and Judah in the south. Well, that already kind of begins here. There's already a sense that there's a difference between those northern kingdoms and the southern kingdom of Judah, because they're the ones that initially take David in and make him king. He's only the king of the southern region of Judah at this point. When they told David it was the people of Jash Gilgal who buried Saul, David sent messengers to the people of that area and said to them, may you be blessed by the Lord, because you showed this loyalty to Saul your Lord and buried him. Now may the Lord show steadfast love and faithfulness to you, and I too will reward you because you have done this thing. Therefore let your hands be strong and be valiant, for Saul your Lord is dead, and the house of Judah has anointed me king over them." So we go back several stories. We know that Saul had intervened when the Philistines were in their area, and when Saul dies, they come and take his body after it has been hung up on a wall, and they bury it. Now, if we had a map in front of us, Judah's in the south, this area is in the north. Well, David is not only honoring them, but he's making already some allegiances between his territory, the Philistines, and the northern kingdom of Israel. He's already breaking some hedgeway to the northern areas. He's smart. He's not only honoring them because they're good, he's also honoring them because he needs what? He needs alliances. But Abner, son of Ner, commander of Saul's army. So Abner has already taken a role. We've already met him. We'll meet him again in this story. Abner is commander of the armies, and Saul is dead. And the question is, what are we going to do with the kingdom? What are we going to do now that Saul's dead? Who's going to be in charge? And he takes Ishabal, son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim, and he made him king over Gilead and Ashur, Jezreel, Ephraim, Benjamin, and over all Israel. So he takes this son of Saul, and we're told that he's 40 years old. Ishbal, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and he reigned 2 years. Now the question is he really 40? Because it seems to be that doesn't seem legitimate. He's probably much younger. I don't know if it was just a miswriting of this, because David, we're going to find out, was only 30. And how could he be older than Jonathan? So the 40 years didn't seem to be very plausible. Now, we can scratch our head on that. I don't know. But it almost appears within the narrative that he's more of a child, a younger brother. And it appears that Abner uses him as a puppet. He installs him on the throne, but he's not going to be one making decisions. So let's read the story. But the house of Judah followed David. So now we've got two rival kings, one in Judah and one in the northern territories. How do you think that's going to work out? If you got to decide as the people, which one do you want as your king? One has claim to the throne because of sonship. The other has claim to the throne because he's the anointed one by God. The time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. Abner, son of Ner, and the servants of Ishabal, son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab, son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David went out and met them at the pool of Gibeon. So Joab becomes essentially the commander of David's army. We read in Chronicles that Zeruiah, the son of Zeruiah, is David's sister. So this is his nephew, and he's got two brothers we're going to meet. And we're going to see that Joab is he's a little violent, a little unpredictable. Joab, son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David went out and met with the pool of Gibeon. And one group sat on one side of the pool, and the other sat on the other side of the pool. Abner said to Joab, "Let the young men come forward and have a contest before us." So much like the story of Goliath, instead of having the whole armies battle, let's have your soldiers and my soldiers battle for us. And whoever wins is victorious. Joab said, "Let them come forward." So they came forward and were counted as they passed by. 12 from Benjamin, and Ashbel, son of Saul, and 12 from the servants of David. So 12 men, 12 of the best warriors on both sides come to meet. And it's going to be trial by combat, and they're going to represent the armies. Now, one of the things we'll see is Abner is not too keen on fighting against his own people. So maybe Abner comes up with this plan as a way of not having lots of his people and David's people fight. They've got bigger enemies out there. So they came forward and were counted, and each grasped his opponent by his head and thrust his sword in the opponent's side. So they fell down together. All 12 on each side kill each other. Therefore, the place was called Helikazerzerim, which is at Gibeon. That's one of those sneezes. You don't know how to pronounce it, so you sneeze. The battle was fierce that day, and Abner and the men of Israel were beaten by the servants of David. So afterwards, it appears that after they fall down, everybody starts to fight. Just like when Goliath was supposed to die, the armies fight afterwards. Well, that didn't really resolve anything, did it? They all died. So they start having a melee. And the 3 sons of Zer were there: Joab, Abishai, and Ashel. Now Ashel was swift on foot as a wild gazelle. And Asher pursued Abner, turning neither to the right nor to the left as he followed him. So imagine these 3 brothers, one of them spots Abner and begins to run after him. Now, Abner is a much more skilled and proficient soldier. But this one has passion. He has fire in his belly. And he's going after Abner. Abner looked back and said, "Is it you, Ashrel?" And he said, "Yes, it is." And Abner said to him, "Turn to your right or to your left and seize one of the young men and take his spoil." There's plenty of other people you could chase right now. You can catch up with them, take what they got, leave me alone. He obviously knows who he is. But Asher would not turn from following him. And Abner said again, "Turn away from following me. Why should I strike you to the ground?" He does not want to kill one of David's nephews. But he gets put in the position that this one's going to pursue him. "How then could I show my face to your brother Joab?" But he refused to turn away. So Abner struck him in the stomach with the blunt of his spear. At some point, he stops and spears him from the back, so hard that it goes through him. The spear came out of his back. He fell there and died where he lay. And all those who came to the place where Ashel had fallen and died stood still. It just stops. But Joab and Abishai pursued Abner. As the sun was going down, they came to a hill, Ammah, which lies near Giah, on the way to the wilderness of Gibeon. The Benjamites rallied around Abner and formed a single band. They took their stand on the top of the hill. Then Abner called to Joab, "Is the sword to keep devouring forever?" Abner didn't want to kill his brother. And he asked the question, can we just stop devouring each other? Do you not know that the end will be bitter? How long will it be before you order your people to turn from the pursuit of your kinsmen? Although he tries not to have everybody die, melee breaks out, but now he's trying to just stop the violence. I mean, what happens in this kind of world? Violence meets violence, meets violence, meets violence. And the reality is, they've got enough enemies out there. Why do we have to continue to fight? And Joab says, "As God lives, if you had not spoken, the people would have continued to pursue their kinsmen, not stopping until morning." Joab sounded the trumpet, and all the people stopped. They no longer pursued Israel or engaged in battle any further. So in that moment, Joab senses, okay, this is enough. Let's go home. Abner and his men traveled all the night through Aram, and they crossed Jordan, and marching the whole forenoon, they came to Mahanaim. And Joab returned from pursuit of Abner, and when he gathered all the people together, there were missing David's servants, 19 men beside Eshel. But the servants of David killed of Benjamin 360 of Abner's men. So David's men only lost a handful of people in comparison. One of the things we'll notice is Joab does not forgive Abner for killing his brother. Now we read the story and understand Abner tried not to kill Joab's brother. When he recognizes that he's in pursuit, he tries to remind him, this was not my intention. Joab's going to hold a grudge. They took up Ashel and buried him in the tomb of his father, which was at Bethlehem. And Joab and his men marched all night, and they broke them at Harab. Now there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. Now we don't know all the details, but from here on out, there's battle after battle after battle. And David grew stronger and stronger while the house of Saul became weaker and weaker. And sons were born to David at Hebron. The firstborn was Amnon of Anamhi of Jezreel. The second, Chileab of Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. The third, Absalom, son of Maacah, daughter of King Talmai of Gersha. And the fourth, Ajonan, son of Agath. And fifth, Shephathah, son of Abital. And the sixth, Ephraim of David's wife Elga. And there was born to David in Hebron. Now you'll notice that David has multiple sons. Now, take this and remind yourself later what's going to happen when they want to inherit the kingdom. While there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, Abner was making himself strong in the house of Saul. So Abner takes more and more of a lead role in everything going on. Now Saul had a concubine whose name was Rizpah, daughter of Aiah. And Ishabal said to Abner, "Why have you gone into my father's concubine?" Now, concubine was not a full wife, but usually had a sense of being a wife. We'll find out later that she had 2 sons with Saul. So that would have elevated her status in the household. So the question comes from the legitimate heir of Saul, why are you spending time with my father's concubine, essentially wife? Are you the king? Who do you think you are? Now, if Abner is in charge and we think of Ishabal as younger, how would that make you feel? Look at all I've done to keep this kingdom going. And you're coming to me with something this petty? Now, we would ask the question today, well, that's not petty. I mean, this is a woman are y'all in love, or are you just taking advantage of her? The words of Ishabal made Abner very angry. And he said, "Am I a dog's head for Judah? Today I keep showing loyalty to the house of your father Saul, to his brothers and to his friends, and have not given you into the hand of David. And yet you charge me now with a crime concerning this woman." Am I not important enough that this would be the thing that you're going to quarrel over me with? So may God do to Abner, and so may he add to it, for just what the Lord has sworn to David, that I will accomplish for him, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul, to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, from Dan to Beersheba. And Ishabal could not answer Abner another word, because he feared him. So he says, listen, I've been fighting for Saul. I've been fighting for you. Guess what? I'm done. I'm going over to David's side. What are you going to have left? Ishmael doesn't have a whole lot going for him. He's not his father. He's not Jonathan. If he is younger, it makes sense that he doesn't know his place in this court. And now the only person holding the northern kingdoms together has said, I'm defecting. I'm going to the other side. You know, it's like if you had Michael Jordan on the team and he's keeping the team together, and, you know, I don't feel like I've been getting my due respect. I'm going to go to the other team. And Abner is afraid. Ishabal is afraid. Abner sends message to David to Hebron, to whom does the land belong? Make your covenant with me, and I will give you my support to bring all Israel over to you. Now, can you imagine David getting the news that Abner, the commander of Saul's armies, the one holding them together, is ready to defect and join your team? Not only will it demoralize the northern kingdom, but it will bring all of his soldiers with him, all of his support with him. This would be a lot easier than having to fight it out. He said, good, I will make a covenant with you, but one thing I require of you. You shall never appear in my presence unless you bring Saul's daughter Michal when you come to see me. Do you remember her? Yeah. She was Jonathan's sister, Saul's daughter, and she loved him. And they got married, and then when he had to run away, Saul gave her to marriage to somebody else. Now, we were never told if David really loved her. But let's ask the question. If he has her as his wife again, what does that help him do? It helps him bring the lineage of Saul back into his house. That was one of the reasons that Saul didn't want them to be together, was he didn't want to have any claim to his what? His throne. This gives him, again, reclaim to Saul's house. Now, what we'll see is, just like she was not given, her father didn't give her permission to, she was just taken from David, who she loved. Now she's still just somebody to be traded back and forth. We don't get her side of the story, but it's interesting, the husband of her. Then David sent messengers to Saul's son Ishabal, saying, give me my wife Michal, to whom I have been engaged at the price of 100 foreskins of the Philistines. Remember that? That was a great story. Ishabal sent and took her from her husband Platel, son of Lash. He doesn't even fight David on this. It's not a smart move on his account, but David's so strong, he doesn't have any leeway. He just gives him over. But her husband went with her, weeping as he walked behind her all the way to her home. He loves her. This has been his wife for years. And she's taken away now. Abner said to him, go back home. So he went back. Abner sent word to the elders of Israel, for some time had passed, you have been seeking David as king over you. Now then bring it about, for the Lord has promised David, through my servant David, I will save my people Israel from the hands of the Philistines and from their enemies. Abner also spoke directly to the Benjamites. Then Abner went to tell David at Hebron all that Israel and the whole house of Benjamin were ready to do. So Abner shows up saying, look at all the support I've gotten you. This is a good deal for David. When Abner came with 20 men to David at Hebron, David made a feast for Abner and the men who were with him. And Abner said to David, let me go and rally all Israel to my lord the king, in order that they may make a covenant with you, and that you may reign over all that your heart desires. So David dismissed Abner, and he went away in peace. Now we're going to notice this in peace over and over again. So Abner shows up, they have this huge feast, and in the midst of it, they make a covenant, a promise to one another. Abner now is under David's command, and he will work for David, and he will bring the kingdom to David. And all of these other people, and he leaves in peace. They are now what? Joined together. What bad could happen now? Just then the servants of David arrived with Joab from a raid, bringing much spoil with them. They had been out raiding other villages. It's what you do when you're essentially a warlord. I mean, how do you get money? You go out and raid folks. They went and raided. But Abner was not with David at Hebron, for David had dismissed him, and he had gone away in peace. Now Joab and all the army that was with him came, and it was Joab. And it was told Joab, Abner, son of Ner, came to the king, and he has dismissed him, and he has gone away in peace. Then Joab went to the king and said, what have you done? Abner came to you, and why did you dismiss him so that he got away? Well, he got away. No, he let him go. You know that Abner, son of Ner, came to deceive you and to learn your comings and goings and to learn all that you are doing. So he comes and tries to tell David, listen, Abner's not here to help you. He's here to what? Hurt you. Why does he have a problem with Abner? Because Abner killed his brother. When Joab came out from David's presence, he sent messengers after Abner, and they brought him back to the cistern of Sirah. But David did not know about it. David didn't know about a lot of stuff. It's good that David didn't know, but it may be helpful for David too. When Abner returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside in the gateway to speak with him privately. Hey, I need to just tell you something. Takes him in the alley. Well, we've seen that scene in movies. And there he stabbed him in the stomach. So he died for shedding the blood of Ashel, Joab's brother. Now the recognition is, in battle, in war, there is no blood guilt. So Abner's killing of Joab's brother wasn't murder in the sense that it happened in battle. So his killing Abner was not justified. And it should have led to his death. Afterward, when David heard of it, he said, I and my kingdom are forever guiltless before the Lord for the blood of Abner, son of Ner. May the guilt fall on the head of Joab and all of his father's house, and may the house of Joab never be without one who has a discharge, or who is leprous, or holds a spindle, or who falls by the sword, or who lacks food. He essentially curses Joab and Joab's family. So Joab and his brother Asahel murdered Abner because he had killed their brother Ashel in the battle of Gibeon. Then David said to Joab and to all the people who were with him, tear your clothes and put on sackcloth and mourn over Abner. What does he not do? He doesn't put him to death. And King David followed the bear. And they buried Abner at Hebron. And the king lifted up his voice and wept over the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. Joab's brother Ashel is buried in the same place as Abner. A little irony there, isn't it? And the king lamented for Abner, saying, "Should Abner die as a fool dies? Your hands were not bound, your feet were not fettered. As one falls before the wicked, you have fallen." And all the people wept over him again. Now again, he's got some mourning, public mourning, but there is some truth in what Joab may have said about Abner. Abner seems to be opportunistic. He also senses that he's not getting his just due in the northern kingdom, but the northern kingdom's not doing too well, is it? Abner's joint with David was a good thing, but would it have lasted? So although David is upset, what does he not do to Joab and his brother? He lets them live. There's almost a sense that maybe this isn't as bad as it looks. And Joab's going to stay in command of the army for a while. But he's a hothead. We'll find out that not everybody, if we keep reading in 1st and 1 Kings, maybe it's not good to keep him around all the time. All the people wept over him again. And all the people came to persuade David to eat something while it was still day. We'll also meet Joab when somebody else is murdered, that David needs murdered. While it was day, but David swore, saying, "So may God do to me, and more, if I have tasted bread or anything else before the sun goes down." And all the people took note of it, and it pleased them, just as everything the king did pleased all the people. So the people and all Israel understood that the day the king had no part in the killing of Abner, son of Ner. And this king said to his servants, "Do you not know the price, and a great man has fallen this day in Israel? Today I'm powerless, even though anointed king, these men, the sons of Zerah, are too violent for me. The Lord pay back the one who does wickedly in accordance with his wickedness." Even still, David does not dismiss them, does he? These sons that are so bad and violent, he keeps around. We'll finish chapter 4 and come in just into a couple of verses of 5, and we'll end today. When Saul's son Ishabal heard that Abner had died at Hebron, his courage failed, and all Israel was dismayed. Oh my goodness. What predicament am I in? Saul's son had 2 captains of raiding bands, and the name of one was Banah, and the name of the other Richabah. They were sons of Rimmon, a Benjaminite from Berith. From Berith is considered to belong to Benjamin. Now the people of Berith had fled to Gittim and are resident aliens to this day. So Saul's son had 2 captains of raiding bands, and we meet both of them. And Saul's son Jonathan had a son who was crippled in his feet. And he was 5 years old when the news about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. His nurse picked him up and fled, and in her haste to flee, it happened that he fell and became lame. And his name was Mephibosheth. We're going to meet him again later. Now, one of the things that David promises Jonathan was what? What was it, Pat? Take care of his kids. Don't kill them. Now, only one that we're going to really find that he takes care of really well, and it's Mephibosheth. I can't even pronounce his name. My grandfather loved that story. He would tell that story a lot, but I always couldn't pronounce it. we find out early on that he's got a what? A crippling disability. He's not a threat to David. But he is son of Jonathan. Now sons of Rimmon and Bereth, Rechab and Banan set out, and about the heat of the day they came to the house of Ishabal while he was taking his noonday rest. So they're servants, essentially captains of his own house. They came inside the house as though to take weed, and they struck him in the stomach. Another person getting stabbed in the stomach. Whew. Then Rechab and his brother Banan escaped. Now they had come into the house while he was lying on his couch in his bedchamber, and they attacked him and killed him and beheaded him. So you got two different stories back to back of how they killed him. One, they stabbed him in the stomach. The other is that they come while he's in his bedchamber, they attack him, they kill him, and they take his head. Either way, it's violent. But two probably oral traditions get put together. Then they took his head and traveled all the way through Arab all night, and they brought the head of Ishabal to David at Hebron, and said to the king, "Here is the head of Ishabal, son of Saul, your enemy, who sought your life. The Lord has avenged my lord the king this day on Saul and on his offspring." How do you think David's going to react? Now this is his enemy, but so far David has not been too happy when people what? Again, two opportunistic people try to give David something David thinks he wants, and hoping they'll get what? Something out of it. There's Ishabal's own people that do this. They flee and they bring his head to the king David in Judah. David answered Rechab and his brother Banan and the sons of Rimmon and Bereth, "As the Lord lives, who has redeemed my life out of every adversary. When the one who told me, 'See, Saul is dead,' though he was bringing good news, I seized him and killed him at Ziklag. This was the reward I gave him for his news. How much more then, when wicked men have killed a righteous man on his bed in his own house? And now shall I not require his blood at your hand and destroy you from the earth?" So David commanded the young men, and they killed them. They cut off their hands and feet and hung their bodies beside the pool of Hebron. But the head of Ishabal they took and buried in the tomb of Abner at Hebron. Oh my goodness. Again, David makes sure that nobody can make him complicit in the death of another of his perceived enemies. And the way he does that is to what? Let everybody know the people that were responsible we took care of. Does David benefit? Yes, he benefits. Then all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, "Look, we are your bone and flesh. For some time while Saul was king over us, it was you who led out Israel and brought it in. The Lord said it to you, It is you who shall be shepherd over my people Israel. You shall be ruler over Israel." So all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. And David was 30 years old when he became king and began to reign, and he reigned for 40 years. At Hebron he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months. And at Jerusalem he reigned over all Israel and Judah 33 years. We'll stop there and we'll see David moving to Jerusalem, and we'll see David beginning to fight with the Philistines as we come back next week. Let us close in a word of prayer. If y'all have any questions, comments, we will meet next week. Next week is Holy Week, and then we will take Easter Monday. We will take off. So y'all are welcome to come to church, but the church office is closed. So no Monday Bible study, then we'll pick up after that. But let's pray. Gracious God, we thank you again for the day. We thank you for the stories of 1st and 2nd Samuel. God, it feels like a different world because in many ways it is. But God, we come to these stories and we know that out of all of this chaos, you were using David to make something new. And although there were possibilities in David's kingdom and the kingdom of Solomon, we know that the kingship eventually began to wane and grow away from you. Yet you didn't leave Israel, you didn't leave the world, you sent another king. A king to whose attention we turn in the next days and weeks as we come to Holy Week. And who will come to the city of David on Palm Sunday. And who will be crowned king on a cross. But to whom out of suffering you bring new creation through resurrection. As we consider the stories of David, let us see them and understand that in Christ, your kingdom looks so much different. And help us to turn our hearts towards you this week and the coming week as we prepare. And let us also say the words of those on Palm Sunday, Hosanna, Hosanna. Come save us, Christ our King. We pray this in the name of the one who is and was and who will be. Amen.